Next up, I would like to invite Anton Pemmer to the stage, and he's going to be talking about dealing with change in life and business. Now, Anton is the owner of Innovate You and a facilitator, certified facilitator for Lego Serious Play. Now, he's an experienced leader, entrepreneur, and is oddly sprightly in the morning at breakfast when we had a chat before I had my coffee. So I'd love to invite Anton up to the stage. Give him a round of applause, everyone.
Thank you. Got here and the leaders were pumped and excited for the day, and they were really sort of keen to learn, share, talk, catch up, and everyone was three-dimensional. And this is what I said to them yesterday, but I didn't expect so many people here today, and then to have Mia as my warm-up act, I can't believe it. Unfortunately, she set the standard so high, so I hope that we can manage to get through this section without too many tears. And but part of what I want to talk about is change. What's happened in this last 2 years has been unbelievable change globally for everybody, but also personally. Business, personal. When we own a business, everything's interlinked, whether we like it or not. So part of what I want to know out there, how many people have been in business for 1 year? Their very first year in business. Hands up. Right? 2 years. 3 years. 4 years. 5 years. 10 years. Right? More than 15 years. Wow. How many people in this room know everything about business and change? Right? None of us, including me, right? I know less today than I thought I did when I started my first business at 19, right? But I'm probably more open to learning and understanding and taking on feedback from people about how I can improve. So what I want you to do is I want you to sort of consider what changes have happened to you just this week, just after Mia's presentation, in the last 6 months, in the last year, in the last 2 years. You know, sometimes, you know, it's about that leap of faith, right? And we just don't know whose chute's going to open first. Who do we hang on to when we jump and take the leap? When we step into business, it's usually some brilliant idea that we've really decided, let's do it. Oh, I think we can make $1 out of this. Why not do it? Or we can change the world. Or whatever the reason, we decide that we want to take that leap and try to take ourselves to the next level. Will this be better than working for somebody else? Obviously, it's easier working for ourselves than somebody else. It's so much easier. There's no responsibility, no bills to pay, no wages to pay. It just all happens, right? Is this true? No? Really? Sorry? So part of it is, you know, part of change comes from the habits that we create as well. You know, we get up every morning, we clean our teeth, and we build up the habits that we're doing every single day, right? And we just get adapted to that. And then when something unexpected comes up, and we'll use COVID because it's the most perfect example of change, sometimes these changes are things that we decide to do ourselves to break our habits. Others is because we have no other opportunity but to change. You know? And don't we love this? Resilience, right? We need to be resilient to change. Don't we feel excited about that term? No. Right? We're tired of hearing about it. What is resilience? If you think of this damn wall, is made up of a lot of single blocks. That's where our resilience comes from. It doesn't come from one thing. It comes from all the aspects that help support us throughout life. The friends, the families, the team members within our organisation, right? Sometimes it comes from random people that we had no idea that they were going to be there for us at all. But they all make up what our resilience is and how we can deal with change. And a lot of the time, we don't know how to deal with change. It's easy when we make the decision to make that change, but it's very, very difficult when it's forced on us. And maybe we don't have the answers. So when you think of yourselves and you think of all those building blocks that's creating that damn wall that holds you in place and makes you the person that you are so that you can deal with change that comes about. You know, sometimes change comes out of the corner of a crack, yeah, that you never thought would even survive or last, and it does. You know, sometimes it's about, you know, the ability to bounce back from a negative experience. And I'll be talking about a negative experience that happened to both myself and my wife shortly. But that wall that we had, that dam, and all those blocks gives us the ability to come back from whatever it was that created that change. Yeah, when we look at dealing with change, both personal and business, they are so intertwined. You know, we have no choice sometimes because we're living it every day. We wake up in the morning and we're going to do our job, our business. We're dealing with people. Our priorities sometimes get pushed back because of other people's priorities. And this leads me into a story. And this is how I felt 4 years ago. And I want you to think, before I go into that, I want you to think of your businesses that you currently have. If you close your eyes now, and I want you to think about everything that you have, all your resources, your team, your business, your home, your family, your friends. Close your eyes now and think, if I started my business tomorrow with all those things that I have now, brand new, and I'm ready to kick off, eyes open, I'm starting my business and I've got all those same resources. What would I do different today that I didn't do when I started it, right? What would I have changed? How would I do it? Now, what led me to the edge was I had a business where it started back in 1989. It was an idea. It started with a $5,000 overdraft, importing some product that led into a manufacturing company. I grew it from a $5,000 overdraft into a $4 million company. It then was exporting to 25 countries. We were supplying 450 distributors Australia-wide. We were manufacturing sports drink bottles. That seems, how could you manufacture sports drink bottles? Every Australian Olympic team, Paralympic team, Commonwealth Games team for over 20 years used our product. We were a global supplier. And we'd been through some difficulties. And back in 2017, so we'd been going along, we'd had the best year that we'd had in 5 years. Everything was great. We were so excited for what lay ahead. We had a great team of people. The average tenure of our staff was 8 years, right? At a high point, we had 27 staff. At a low point, was around the 15, 16 mark. So We had a great team culture. We were across at least 7 nationalities. We didn't care where you came from, who you were, whether you were abled or disabled, whether you were male, female, what nationality. What we looked for is who fitted our team. Who was the ideal people that we want to work with and to work with each other. Now, what brought us to the edge? Can you imagine that you've finished the best year in 5 years? Things are looking really good. The production out of a facility was between 25 and 30,000 bottles a week, right? Things were going great. And then July and August was the worst 2 months in 21 years. So if you can imagine your life today with all your overheads, all your business, everything you do, but the income that you had from 21 years ago, but with all your overheads today. It was devastating. And because we're in a production side of things, we're dealing with, you're seeing outputs. Every staff member is seeing outputs. They know that if you're dropped to 4,000 bottles that week, that something's not quite right. So by the end of August, we were faced with, what do? We had to make everybody redundant. We had no choice. We had creditors to here, major suppliers that needed to be paid, but our income was from 21 years ago. And that ability to change from what we were doing became extremely difficult. Now, I'm just presenting this from my perspective, sitting on the edge here. But my wife had to deal with it as well. We worked together in the company, and we were both really on that edge. What was difficult was to know what to do. We had no idea. I brought consultants in to look at the business. What was I not seeing? What didn't I see that was outside of my control? Was there a new competitor? No. What happened? Literally, the tap got turned off. Then in end of September, October, the tap was turned back on again. Orders started to come back in, business started to picked up the phone, checking with staff, are they looking for work still? Would they like to come in, right? And they came back to work. We only lost a couple of people who had found other positions. It was tough. We got through that until we hit December and crashed again. Totally screwed. Didn't know what to do. Someone had been interested to buy the business a year before. So we reached out to that person, and they decided to buy the company for 50% of the book value of the assets, right? After 28 years. And we were like, how are we going to do this? So they were to take over at the end of January 2018. We needed to decide how we were going to get through this. We had major creditors that we owed big money to. As you can imagine, when you've got that sort of turnover, what your creditors look like. And we didn't know what else to do. Every Friday, I would ring every creditor. From that period in August onwards, I would call every creditor and say, hi, just letting you know where we're up to. This week I can only afford to send you so much, because we would share the money out to different people. Totally transparent. Explain the situation. Went down to Melbourne to see our major supplier, who was Visy Packaging. And and explain to them, we don't know what's happened. Here are my financials. I'm happy for you to have a look at them. I have nothing to hide. But we need your help to survive and get through this. Not one creditor took any action over that period, even owing that amount of money. The key was how we dealt with the change was about the transparency of it and where we were going to do it. My wife and I discussed, okay, we're getting X amount of dollars from the sale of the business. That'll pay all the staff and some of the creditors. How do we pay the rest of our creditors and clear the debt? We have to sell our home, have to sell the car. We had to sell everything that we had. And we also needed a helping hand. And friends reached out and supported us. One couple in particular lent us some money. And when they lent us that money, I thought they had a fixed deposit. And I said, well, when we can sell our house and sell a few other things, we can pay you back. Is that okay? Not a problem, Anton. Yeah, happy to look after you and Rosemary. No drama at all. Anyway, we sold everything off and we paid them back the money. And when we paid them back, they said, oh, thanks very much for paying us back. Now we can clear the mortgage. I said, what do you mean? They said, oh, we mortgaged our home to lend you the money so that you could get through this period, right? I and my wife would never ask anybody to ever do that for us, ever. And here were two friends who did it willingly for us. That support that's sitting out there, often we don't see every day. And how we were to deal with that change. Now, we were able, with everything and selling everything, and my wife spending an extra 3 or 4 months in the warehouse clearing pallets of collectibles and other stuff that we gather over our lives, and to bring in some cash. You can imagine in Canberra in winter, at minus temperatures, sitting in a warehouse trying to clear stuff, crap that you just want to get rid of, but you need the cash in to survive. And that's what it was like, sitting on the edge, where neither of us knew what to do. The saddest point for me was seeing my wife sitting on the back step of our house before it was being sold in tears, because we loved that place. We loved where we were. But we knew that we didn't have a choice to make that change. And sometimes in life we don't have a choice on what changes we make. It just happens. And, you know, I could have blamed a million things. And it's troubled me ever since, trying to find the reason why, what happened with the business. But it just changed. Beyond my control, beyond our control, beyond our team's control. We sat down with our staff trying to fathom how we could move forward. And fortunately, at the end of the day, we were able to pay all our creditors, all our staff, even the ATO was able to be paid. We didn't have to go into liquidation or receivership. We were able to clear everybody and walk forward. And I've got to say that in hindsight was the best thing we ever did, that we sold the business, we paid our debts and we moved forward, and that change was forced on us. But what happens after you do that change? Well, my wife Rosemary was always wanted to work at the school. All of a sudden a job comes up and she's working at the high school where the children are going to. I served out my 3 months with the new owners. That finished, they moved the company to Sydney. I was out of work 2 weeks. Walked straight into a job at the Canberra Business Chamber. That contract led to another contract, which led to another contract, and I was at the Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman's Office on contract, then back as a Special Projects Manager at the Business Chamber, and life went on. But what puts you there is when you identify so closely with your business. I'd been the managing director of my company for 28 years. And the period where I was there, I didn't know who I was anymore. I had no idea because where I was within myself was my title. I didn't know who the hell Anton was. I just knew who the managing director of the company was because that's who I was, you know, that guy that gets out networking and all that sort of thing. And it wasn't till probably a year after the sale that I actually started to clearly understand who I was and what my next steps forward could be. And I think part of it is because we identify with our businesses so closely within our identity that we don't know how do we deal with change when something happens within that. And one thing I realised was if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, life would still go on. But who would miss me? I'd hope to think my wife and my kids would miss me and my friends would miss me. But because I started my very first business at 19, that was always my priority. I put my business before everything. My identity was always linked to a business. Since that period, which is now 4 years later, this is our 4th year, I've been working in the business advisory space for the ACT government through the Southern Region Business Enterprise Centre. I've been also doing business advisory for the New South Wales government through the Business Connect program. I've become an executive coach, a facilitator. I've done extra training. And I've realised that as the time has gone on, all those experiences that I've had since I was 19 has made me who I am today. But it's also given me the ability, with all those blocks in the wall, to be able to step forward in a positive way and actually know who I am and how to deal with change. And it's surprising when you go through such a challenge who your real friends are or who your real close family members are. The ones that sort of walk away and the ones that step up saying, how can we help you? Now, I've also been involved with Rotary International for 23 years, and our friends within Rotary that stood up and supported us and have been there ever since were amazing. And part of that is because they just said, you've always been there for us. But we never saw that. My wife and I were just being us. Our philosophy is you just treat people like you want to be treated. It's as simple as that. It doesn't get any easier than that. And I guess the talk about change, and the reason I've told you that story is to understand that sometimes change can be beyond our control. 2 years later, if COVID would have hit and we still own the company and things were going well, we would have gone bust because we would have lost our whole distribution network. We would not have had the ability to sell the business or pay our debts. So sometimes blessings come only in hindsight that you realise that it was a blessing at that time. But it's one of those challenges where when you're faced with difficulty, remember, be transparent with your staff, transparent with your suppliers, and they will step up for you as well. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying there wasn't tears. I'm not saying there wasn't times when you would just go, this is an oh shit moment, I don't know how this is going to go. But there's times when you just have to embrace whatever you've got, whatever the resources are. It's not about the car in the driveway or the roof over your head. For me, it was about the person I was snuggled up to at night that made all the difference, that helped me see the value in something far beyond the things that I'd created in business. I'd just like to say thank you to my wife Rosemary, who's here today, for her support and encouragement to be able to get through things for both of us. You know, and because without that, I couldn't have done it. Thank you very much. No worries.
Timer died, but you're right on time.
There's no time.
I know, and you're right on time. How good's that? How long do I get to stay up here for now? Interesting. Okie dokie, everyone. So thank you again to Anton. Let's give another round of applause. And Rosemary, of course. Okay, now if I can, I would love to invite Gabrielle Benkovich, I want to say. Yeah, and Matthew from our sponsor, Judge Accountants, and Matthew Corry from Clarity Wealth, and they're going to speak about planning a prosperous future. Now, if you guys have been posting anything on social media today, don't forget to use the hashtag Accelerate2022 because we'd love to see it all. So don't forget, spread the word, and we'll see it all on later. Please come on up, guys. Big round of applause.
I'll let him be in charge of the clicker. Good morning, everyone. All right, everyone stand up for me. Stretch up. Oh, put your arms down. Give a little shake and have a seat. Buckle up, because we're about to have some fun with us. Absolutely, absolutely. So my name's Gabrielle Benkovich. I am one of the owners and directors of Judge Accountants, and I have the lovely Matthew Corry with me, who is one of the owners of Clarity Wealth as a financial advisor. And we come together in our businesses to form the Judge Group. So when you come into our office, you get both tax and business advice, financial planning, and we actually also have Judge lending, so you can go and get the money to fund what we talk about. So that's a little bit about us. We work together, we come in, we're proactive, and we care about you as individuals and your business. You're not just dealing with random people over the phone. We actually care and put you first. For those that know me, which is a lot of you, I actually care about you and helping you succeed, often to my detriment. But it's okay, because if you succeed, I succeed, and it's what we love to do.
Absolutely. All right. Very lovely to be here. I know I've met a few of you before, but thankfully my section will be limited on numbers. Really what I want everyone thinking about today is planning for a prosperous future. And really what's involved in that is getting away from the numbers. I think with a lot of clients that come into us and come and see us, is they do have that number expectation. You know, give me some advice on to increase revenue, to get more clients, all those kind of things. And really what we want to do and how we look to try and help people, and what we try and encourage you to do is think a little bit broader than that. Think a little bit about, okay, well, what's your future? What does a prosperous future mean to you? Because to everyone, it's going to be different, okay? You really need to, when it comes to your business and being business owners here, is think about, well, what kind of lifestyle do I want to create around my business? Because your business is only one part of you. You know, it's only one part for me as a business owner. I've got a lot of elements that define me as a person, okay? So what we'd always encourage you to do is think through that framework. Think around, well, what's prosperity to you? Because it is a relevant and a relative, consideration for everyone. Goal setting. Very boring and bland. I know most people speak about it, but interestingly, who here kind of writes down their goals? Oh, awesome. Great. All right. Goal setting is super important when it comes to that thinking around planning for a prosperous future, okay? Because ultimately, again, goals are going to be your own, okay? They're what's going to drive you. They're what's going to dictate, essentially, how you measure your own success, okay? Because again, all these kind of concepts are relative, okay? So when you're coming and when you're engaging with people like accountants and financial advisors, if we aren't your accountants and financial advisors, but really what you should be looking to get out of that is really getting pushed and pressured on what your higher level aspirations are, okay? One of the things that we would see a lot, and through a lot of people, is they don't really nail down that goal setting piece first, okay? They kind of come in with the expectation and they look through the lens of, again, I need more revenue, more clients, what's the best way to save tax, okay? And really that's not the framework that you should be looking at. The framework that you really should be looking at is what is successful for me, okay? And that is the start of your journey, okay? Because you can't really appreciate, absorb or implement any advice from anyone until they know what you want. And they're not going to know what you want until you know what you want, okay? And I think really it's great that a lot of you kind of write down those goals, but it's important to understand again, within that goal setting, getting those short-term goals nailed down, those medium-term and longer-term goals. Because again, you want to have that sense of success and you want to, when you're engaging and getting advice from people, you want them to understand who you are as a person and what you're looking to get out of the relationship that you're dealing with, really. So I might pass on to Gabby, again, bringing it back to that goal setting piece. Once we've really got that framework around what someone wants, it's important then to figure out, okay, well, what are the bits and pieces that plug into the goals that enable them to essentially be achieved?
So to achieve those goals, it's about using your business as that engine to achieve them. So when you come through our doors at the Judge Group, we take you on a little journey. And the journey is the 7 steps to success. Because success in your business leads to success as you individually, leads you to achieving your goals, leading to a prosperous future. So the 7 steps when you come in, of course, tax advice. Looking at tax is something that we look at. Now, we like to be proactive, and it's really important that you take this step in your business, and we talk about it all the time. You know, that May-June period before the end of financial year, coming in, talking about your goals, looking at how the year's been, and then making the decisions around tax. Because bringing your tax down as low as possible may not be the right solution to achieve the goals that you want. So it's about having that chat and communicating. We're there to help you protect your business, whether that's through restructuring, whether it's through insurance and advice, making sure that what you build is protected and doesn't become overly costly for you in the future. Cash flow. He's had a tough couple of years. The government's been great in some ways, but it's now starting to hurt. And we're seeing that with a lot of our businesses, whether it's through the supply chain, whether it's through staffing, whether it's cash flow. Cash flow is the number one thing that keeps you up at night. And if you don't know how to do it easily, please come and talk to me, because to manage your cash helps you sleep at night. We run a lot of courses, cash flow is one of them, but making sure you understand it and how to plan for it is super important for us. Leading to profits, everyone's here to make a profit, no one's here to not make a profit, right? We all need to be able to put food on the table of a night. Learning on how to grow your business, what the paths are, we work together, make sure you get there to create the wealth with the advice of our Clarity team, and then how to get out. You have to plan now to exit, right? Make it valuable. The businesses you build have a value. So how do we do that? And that's something that we focus on at Judge.
So let's talk a little bit about The Simpsons. Importantly, when The Simpsons came to us, really the framework again that they were looking at their business through was not that goal setting and planning for the future. They'd really built up a great business, but unfortunately they really hadn't thought about, okay, well, what does the future hold for me? And how do I kind of set myself up for that? I heard I was at a presentation once, and I've kind of carried this through, and I think it's equally applicable in financial planning. And I was talking about estate planning, and a solicitor was essentially, an estate planning solicitor was talking about, okay, well, you know, you need to do your wills, you need to do your power of attorneys, enduring guardianships, all those kind of things. And he said, I make more money when you don't do it than when I do, okay? The Simpsons is kind of true of that, okay? The opportunity that presented for us and the value of advice that we were able to provide was great, but when we initially engaged with them up front, the opportunity came about because really there was no forward planning or forward thinking about what they wanted to do, okay? So framing that, obviously with Margin Homer, they run a machine repair business, a great business with excess cash flow. But where's this cash going? Sitting in a bank account, basically. They'd love to give money to the children. They don't know when they're going to give money to the children. They don't know how much they're going to give to the children. It's great to be kids of The Simpsons in this scenario compared to the TV show. But looking to wind down in the next 5 to 10 years, okay? But again, what does winding down look like? Is that 3 days a week? Is it 2 days a week? Is it selling your business and working in your business still for a little bit of time? Again, getting these considerations became important, and it wasn't questions that were asked when we were initially dealing with The Simpsons and when they started with someone previously. They currently take about $120,000 out of the business each, and the business is worth about $1 million. So in this scenario, we're dealing with a really good business, okay? But the problem that we've got is that Margin Homer here had no forward planning. Like most people, and everyone's guilty, and I'm guilty of it, you get in that day-to-day grind, and that day-to-day grind turns into a week-to-week grind and a month-to-month grind, and before you know it, you've gone through 2 years of COVID and you've barely blinked. So in this instance, we've got a great business, but we haven't got a great framework. We haven't really built something that enables them to achieve a lot of the outcomes that they want. So what Gabby's going to do is she's going to take you through a little bit of a scenario of what we did in this particular situation.
Okay, so just remember, everyone's situation is different. So we have to take a tailored approach to what we do, and the advice and the legislation and the rules that we can do at that time is how we can play with them. So please don't take this as any advice, come and talk to us, blah, 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 you know the drill. Okay, so the current situation of the wonderful Simpsons. So they have a company called Simpsons Proprietary Limited, and the shareholders are the individuals, Homer and Marge. Sorry, had to think back to my childhood just then. Homer and Marge, they are the shareholders of Simpsons Proprietary Limited. They had 3 wonderful children, well behaved, 2 of them over the age of 18, 1 of them was under the age of 18. They had received $600,000 of inheritance, lucky them, and they had $800,000 worth of shares in their personal name. In the business bank account, they had $300,000, not knowing what to do with it. Nice situation, but not effective. So what we did for them, we restructured them. And at the time, we could do this effectively. What we did, we changed the shareholders, we created a trust. So when you have a company, the only way you can get company money out of a company is through wages and dividends. We changed the shareholder to a trust where money is distributed out to beneficiaries, for those that don't know. Marge and Homer are beneficiaries of the new trust, obviously, and so are the kids. And they had $800,000 of shares that were in their personal names that we were able to move over to the trust. Now, we did this with no tax to pay on the restructure. Now, that's really strange, right? Because normally there'd be capital gains tax all of that fun stuff. Now, how did we get around that? Looking at the restructure, the shares in their personal name have been really poorly managed. If you don't have time to manage your own shares or your wealth, get some advice that's proactive, right? It was also COVID, and the share market had taken a dive. So the shares were actually at a loss. So that is why we could move those shares at the time into the trust with no capital gain, okay? The other thing that we did was we transferring the business, right? There's also capital gains tax when it's a value. But there are these things called small business CGT concessions. Whoa, okay, let's try that again. Small business CGT concessions, and that's what your tax accountant's there for, to know about them and put them into use effectively. What it meant was the business was worth $1 million when this occurred. They get the 50% capital gains discount that everyone gets on any wealth that they sell in their personal name, the assets, right? But then we were able to use the small business CGT concession where we could move that money into the super fund. Now remember, they had that $600K worth of inheritance. That is why we moved that $600,000 worth of inheritance, put it into the super fund, and there was no capital gain tax on the movement of the business from their personal names to the trust. That's why each effect has to be tailored to what is around and what the situation is. So we moved 600K into super, $500K into super, extra 100K of their inheritance into the super as well, and then we were going to set up a self-managed super fund for them to succeed and go from there. Why do all that, right? So yes, no tax on the restructure, but it was then the benefit of the tax moving forward, right? So let's look at those tax savings. The money that they wanted to pay each of their kids 100K. Really nice, right? Good parents, wish I had that. Anyway, that 100K, if it was in the old structure, they would have paid $75,000 in tax. The restructure, when we transferred that money to the kids, was $35,000. That was a saving of $40,000 that can be used for something else. Like, that's a lot of money. You think that's great? There's more, right? So on that inheritance, say they earned 5% income on that money that was sitting there, right? They would have paid $149,000 of tax on that 5%. Instead, 56. So 149 was the original, and we got it down to 56,000, which saved them 93. Like, to me, that's so much money that you can do with in the future. I saved them over 120K in tax just because we restructured them. And all they had to do is come and have a chat. Like, if you don't talk to your professionals and experts that surround you, who knows that if you're heading and able to do this, like, you could all be in these situations that can help you save that money and be protected in your business. Sound like a pretty cool idea, right? Who wants more money without having to do much? I sure do when I can. Now, I know that not everyone's in this situation, right? And everyone's going, oh, I'd love that amount of money. But don't worry. We've looked after everybody today.
Let's talk a little bit about Minnie. Actually, I might take a step back and I think speak to the Simpsons scenario a little bit more. In these situations, you need to understand when we're talking about structures and businesses and all these kind of things, the government loves businesses, right? Because you invest your time, your money, you go out there and employ people and you keep the economy running. So when we kind of look at these structures, you need to understand that why they exist is because the government wants to encourage people to go out there and create and build businesses, okay? So you're in, I wouldn't say a privileged position, But it is an awesome opportunity for someone like you who owns a business and the flexibility that you've got with these kind of strategies versus someone who just might work in a normal PAYG job, okay? But let's, again, as Gabby mentioned, not everyone's business is the same. And we're all on a different journey, again, going back to the, to the first one in terms of your prosperous future. So let's talk a little bit about Minnie. So Minnie runs a hairdressing salon. Her profit's $70,000. She wants to hire 2 staff members and wants to purchase her home this year. So this is a very distinct difference in terms of the life stage that Minnie's at versus the Simpsons, okay? Now, the importance of this is we want to show the value and essentially emphasise the importance of going out there and being proactive when it comes to your businesses, no matter what size, okay? And reverting back to the example I made about the wills, power of attorney, guardianships, really, obviously we had a great scenario with the Simpsons, but realistic for a lot of people, if you don't do that planning up front, it will end up costing you more money down the track, okay? So, Gabby, I might get you to speak to a little bit about Minnie.
Yeah.
And what we're able to do for her.
All right. So we have Minnie Mouse, by the way, my favourite Disney character out there, so you know. Minnie Mouse, she wants to hire 2 staff members, so she's a sole trader, wants to hire 2 staff members, and she wants to purchase her home in the next year. Okay. As a sole trader, you get to pay tax at a marginal rate. Company, 26% flat rate. So at a point in time, you are better off from a tax perspective becoming a company to pay less tax, okay? Now, that sweet spot's around the $41,000 mark now, but bear in mind, to set up a company, there's costs to that and things that go into play. So when you're about that 70, 80K, that's when it really becomes effective to become a company. Seek advice first, but advice to become a company, right? From a tax perspective. The other thing that is beneficial for Minnie to become a company, not only from tax, but she wants to hire these awesome people. Who has staff here and employees? Aren't they awesome? Until they're not. And then they're a nightmare, right? And they can be the first person to sue you. Now, if you own your own house, who wants to put their house at risk for staff? The car, investment property, anything you own? A company will protect you a lot more than being a sole trader. Because when you're a sole trader, they can take you for everything that you own. Whereas a company, there's a little more. They can take you for what's in your business, and that's it. There are little things outside there, you know. Make sure you pay your super on time, pays your withholding, otherwise you're personally liable as a holder, so make sure you do that. Otherwise the ATO will come knocking. And they have just put out, by the way, that now that COVID's over, they're going to start chasing those super payments, so just make sure they're up to date. Side note. But yeah, make sure if you're going to bring staff on, I really recommend a company because people are, as I said, really lovely until they're not. I want to purchase a home. So that's around the asset protection, right? We want to protect that home that you're building and creating for yourselves. Now, one of the issues is that we come across with lending is that if you become a new company, it can be much harder to get a loan in the 12 months that you've become a business. Sometimes 18 months, sometimes 2 years, depending on the market. Wonderful Corry from CBA can probably tell you a little bit more on that, around that kind of thing, right? So the forward planning, talking about your goals every year, you know, in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 5 years, 10 years, talk about it so that we can put the plans in place and make sure that you can then get that lending for you to go and get your home that you want. Now, she would have struggled to get a loan if we had changed her into a company at that point in time. It's just a fact. Doesn't matter whether you're buying into a business and it's so successful and the business has been around forever and the person staying there has been there forever and you're buying in, you're still affected by being in a brand new business trying to get a loan. So always forward plan for your future. Have the conversations, right? It's not difficult to pick up your phone and have a chat. If you're not close with your experts, become close. If they're not your people, find new people that are your people. You know, Andrea was saying today, create that community around yourself for that support, because that's what's going to help you succeed. You can't be an expert in everything. You can't have your fingers in all the pies. Find your people. All right? So creating Mini into a company, not only for tax, the future, employees, but also asset protection. Do you have anything to add to that one?
No. I've got my eye on the clock.
Oh.
That's all right. So importantly, I think when you build a business, and again, tying this back to the start, understanding what your motivations are. Because everyone's going to be different. You know, some people build a business to sell it. Some people build a business because they have to. It's their only option. Some people build a business because it's a passion. But importantly, understand, okay, well, what's your exit strategy? Because unfortunately for all of us, at some point, we are going to exit our businesses in some capacity. So it's important to understand, okay, well, what's going to be our motivator for that? And whether that's going to occur as a result of a sale of our business, whether that's going to occur as a result of us just shutting it down, okay? Now, importantly, as I said, remembering that when it comes to managing your affairs, you're in a privileged position as business owners. The government loves business owners, okay? And again, bring it back to that scenario around The Simpsons, understanding the different structures that are available for you. For example, utilising things like superannuation. But again, that exit strategy is so key, because the cost of exiting is always going to be relative to how you set yourself up structurally at the start, okay? Whether you have 2 shareholders, whether you have 1 shareholder, whether you have a family trust, whether you operate as a sole trader, all these things are going to impact what happens with your business. Whether you want to pass it on to kids. It's important to make sure, it's so important, I can't emphasise if you can't hear the tone in my voice, getting these things right at the start. Because although you don't feel like you're a big business, look, this might not be suitable for me, this not, you know, I don't think I really want to go down those complicated areas. You need to keep them front of mind. Because although it feels like that you don't fit into the framework now, when it comes to this exit strategy and retirement for some people, you're going to wish you thought about it when it comes to leave. Okay? You know, how many times have we heard, you know, I'll just put an added side note on here, and superannuation. I'm a bit biased, obviously, in my occupation, but you know, how many times have you heard, you know, my business is my super? You know, this is what this is about. You know, it's about getting your business structures in place, ready for that exit. And a lot of that legwork and hard work is done at the start, not at the end. Okay.
Cool.
Gabby. And we've got about 90 seconds for questions.
Would you like to jump up to the microphone if that's okay? Thank you.
Sorry, you say the government loves small businesses. Are you talking about the current government or governments, whichever one's going to be in charge?
I'll say generally most governments do love small business. And that's just simply through the contribution that they make through the economy. You know, they're SMEs are the biggest employer of people. So, you know, they really want small to medium-sized enterprise businesses doing well. So, when it comes to governments, you would hope that that's a bipartisan support issue when it comes to businesses. All right.
Anything else? Awesome. Well, before we get kicked off, just wanted to say, come and say hi, come and have a chat. We have a lolly guessing competition, so see Mel, and whoever gets the right number gets the jar of lollies. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome day.
Thanks, guys. Great job. So many things to think about that I definitely have not thought about, but I feel like I'm under 30. I can get away with a little bit, right? Just for a little bit. Anyway, no? Help. Okay, so following up that awesome chat, we are going to hear from Brook McCarthy. And her topic is Get People Moving, Say Something Worth Listening to. Now, Brooke is a business coach and a digital marketing trainer from Hustle and Heart. And I'd love to invite her up on stage to teach us a little bit more.
I loved what Gabrielle did, so let's stand up and have a bit of because all that taxation talk, right? I need to kind of, YMCA. Thank you for indulging me. If you cannot have a bit of fun on stage, what is the point? Because it's certainly not worth it for the nerves. We live in the information age. Can anyone tell me what is the most valuable thing in the age of information? Attention. Gold star for the woman in the lovely silk blouse. Attention. So being specific is genius, absolutely genius. As a business coach and digital marketing trainer, please don't hold that against me. I know there's some dodgy business coaches out there. Every single week, I probably taught hundreds, if not thousands, of people to start a business, which means there's a hell of a lot of businesses out there, right? Right now, I'm in the middle of teaching a new cohort of people to start a business. I started my business 14 years ago. It cost me about $350. I could have probably started it for less. It doesn't cost a lot to start a business nowadays. Thank God, thankfully. And anybody can get on the internet. I wanted to be a journalist when I was young, and then I discovered the internet, and I'm like, why the hell would I want to be a journalist? I can just publish what I know, I can press send, I can press, publish, and it's awesome. People read it, because as a writer, you want to be read, and then some kind souls say, thanks very much for writing this. The point I'm making is, it's very, very easy to post stuff on the internet, but that doesn't mean it works, because everybody is posting stuff on the internet. So the more specific you can be, the more it works. And the reason for this is that this is how our brain works. It is tiring, right? Anyone got kids? Yeah? Anyone just had a hellish week when the kids go back to school? And you're getting like 3 emails a day. I've got my eldest is just going into high school. My youngest is in year 6. There's like 3 emails a day. There's apps, there's this, there's that. I'm just like, what the heck? This is ridiculous. So we are overwhelmed by information, and our brain is literally filtering all the time. We only see what we want to see. We only see what we are specifically looking for. We literally don't see 99% of marketing out there. So why am I introducing myself on the 4th or 5th slide? Anyone? Thank you. 2 gold stars for you. Beautiful. So face-to-face communication is not at all similar to digital communication. And people that say, oh, just write like you speak. Terrible, terrible advice. Face-to-face communication. Think about coming here today. You had a few conversations. You probably made a lot of small talk. Did you take the train? Did you drive? Where do you live? What do you do? There's a lot of warm-up, right? Because if you'd gone straight in and said, we live in the information age, people would have gone, okay, cool. I'm just going to go over here. So I've got to first say something worth listening to before I earn the right to introduce myself. So you can improve your communications dramatically by just deleting the first sentence. Yeah? Almost always the quickest, easiest hack you can do. So I'm a digital marketing trainer and a business coach with 17 years experience. I have a background in public relations. I've been in business for 14 years now. That makes me happily unemployable, hopefully for the rest of my life. My partner is also self-employed. We've lived through a mortgage in Sydney and the fun that is that. And the birth of 2 babies, numerous renovations, big holidays overseas, and somehow kept it all happening somehow. Don't ask me how exactly. I help people in professional services to say something worth listening to and do something worth talking about. I love helping business owners to make boldness their business strategy, and this is the topic of today. Noodle soup is my love language. I just had a training gig in Malaysia cancelled, so I'm on the hunt for laksa if you have any recommendations. So the point is that you have to be bold. You do not have to be Gary Vee, you do not have to be Anthony Robbins, God forbid. You do not have to pretend to be anything other than yourself, but you absolutely do need to turn up the volume on what makes you interesting, on what you have to say, and most importantly, why people should care. Because, as I said earlier, you risk becoming the elevator music of the internet otherwise. It's easy to post to Instagram. It's straightforward to start a LinkedIn page or to get a website published this weekend. You might be able to do it yourself. It might cost you nothing. But that doesn't mean that anyone's listening. So what is bold communications exactly? It means your marketing is far more effective at attracting the attention of your ideal client. And I really like this ideal client scenario rather than demographics. Demographics is old school marketing. New school marketing is psychographics. Do you know who are two individuals that have the exact same demographic profile? Prince Charles and Ozzy Osbourne. They both live in a castle, they're the same age, worth the same amount of money. There's many, many demographic things that fit each other. Completely different people, right? So understanding the psychology, being obsessed with the psychology of your ideal client group is part and parcel of marketing effectively. And what I'm trying to do as a digital marketer is to understand my ideal clients better than they understand themselves. And if that sounds a bit arrogant, you're like, how do you do that? Like, that's a bit daft. I should be able to, right? Because I'm seeing the same type of people. I'm attracting the same type of people all the time. So I'm in a unique position to notice things about this group of people that they may not notice about themselves. Your marketing needs to repel as well. And this is especially so for sole traders and tiny businesses. Put your hand in the air if you consider yourself a tiny business or a sole trader. Keep your hand in the air if you're really, really sick of energy vampires and tire kickers. Yeah, because we don't have the luxury of a customer service department answering the phone calls and answering the emails, and it will suck your life force if you keep attracting bad fit people. And you can tell in the first 10 minutes, wow, I do not want you anywhere near my business. Yeah, and what happens with word of mouth referrals? Those energy vampires recommend their friends, God forbid. So as your storylines become stronger, and I'm going to give you a whole bunch of practical stuff in relation to storylines in the next few slides, as these become stronger, you attract media publicity and other opportunities more easily. Part of what I'm doing is public relations, but in a very passive kind of a way. So what that means is I write about topics, and I've been blogging for 10 years now, every month. And then my website ranks for certain topics, and then journalists Google certain topics, and then they find me, and they call me, and they interview me, and I get into magazines and news media without the PR pitch, without the media release. You feel great about what you're doing, and so success becomes self-perpetuating, especially for the sole traders and the tiny businesses in the room. Your joy is a business asset. Your attitude is your biggest business asset, and it's imperative that this stays buoyant. All right, please, if you don't already have your pens in your hot little hands, please pick it up now, because I'm going to move fairly quickly through a hell of a lot of creative brainstorming. Starting with the age-old conundrum, who are you? And this is painful, I know, this is painful. It's kind of like, you know, this is a perfect example. You're meeting strangers, so tell me, what do you do? And you're like, you kind of die a little on the inside, right? So what personal details that have nothing to do with your business are you happy to share online? You already know I have 2 children. You already know my partner is also self-employed. You already know noodle soup is my love language. What personal details are you happy and willing to share online? What experiences have you had that added a deeper dimension to what you do, in the same way that Anton told that story about his business going down the gurgler? You know, it was a very personal story, and it made 100% sense for him to share that, because it gives him a depth of experience and credibility that he wouldn't have had otherwise. Yeah, so what experiences have you had that you can share? And the art of storytelling is the art of drawing connections and pulling all those threads and weaving them into a cohesive story. Drawing those connections for your audience. And then there is, who's your ideal client? So for some businesses, they find it way easier to start talking about themselves and their business. And for other businesses, it's far, far easier to start talking about your audience, to focus on your audience and then maybe get more comfortable and then start, divulging more personal details about your backstory. So there is no right or wrong way here, yeah? But there has to be something about the two of you, your ideal client group and yourself or your business, that works together. So this is your starting point. If you're kind of lost in marketing, if you find the whole thing incredibly difficult, complex, exotic, this is your starting point. This is your first step and your current obsession. What are your ideal clients' issues, worries, problems, and inconveniences? You want to know that really, really well. And knowing that really, really well and making people feel that you intimately know them. Like, what we're trying to do here is pluck the heartstrings of strangers through screens. This is not an easy thing to do. So going into detail and depth about this, making people feel something, making them be seen and heard, feel seen and heard, is the starting point. And further, people care far less about your credentials, your qualifications, than you think they do. I teach marketing at Swinburne University, at Australian Catholic University. I teach business, how to start a business. I don't have a business degree. I don't have a marketing degree. I find it fairly boring as batshit. I find marketing and, business pretty dull, really. It's a practical subject. It is 1% theory, 99% practice. What do they most wish for? What is the best case scenario for their lives? We make a hell of a lot of assumptions on behalf of other people. It's how we make sense of the world. We take shortcuts all the time. And those shortcuts, those assumptions are often wrong and often turn out to be quite expensive. So, the quickest and easiest thing you can do is you can talk to your clients. You can eavesdrop on conversations. This is one of the joys of Facebook groups, right? Anyone use Facebook groups for business? Anyone use Facebook groups for business so that they can eavesdrop on other people? I am one of those weirdos who reads all the comments in the thread. I find it fascinating. Yeah, what a joy, what a privilege to read the inside workings of other people's minds. What are they currently preoccupied with? And this is a great question when things aren't going well. When you've had a launch, when you're running something and people aren't responding, they're not engaging, they're not buying, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Why is this not flying? This is what the question is. What are they currently preoccupied with? Great example, COVID. March 2020, a lot of businesses went to ground because they were freaking out. They were like, I don't have anything to say about COVID. What the hell is going on? Oh my God. And they're panicking. So what do? They don't talk. They don't communicate. And then a month later, you get 20,000 emails talking about businesses, hand sanitizing techniques and how they're, they're doing surfaces. And I'm like, okay, unsubscribe, unsubscribe, unsubscribe. I didn't know I was, on all these email lists. I'm not interested in your hand sanitizing techniques right now. I'm like, how the hell do I keep my business afloat? That's what I'm currently preoccupied with. Barriers and speed bumps, otherwise known as barriers to purchase. This is what is actively stopping people purchasing from you. They are a great match. They fit the psychographic, the demographic of your ideal client. They like you, you like them. They need what you're selling, but they don't buy. Why don't they buy? What are the common misunderstandings or misconceptions that plague your clients, and why does it matter? Yeah, a massive part of modern day marketing is education. This is 90% of what we're doing. Yeah, content marketing is educating people on what their problems are and what the potential solutions are. By the way, nobody Googles solutions. I have a problem seeking a solution. So take solution off your website. It's dull as dishwater. What stops your prospective ideal clients buying from you? And again, you can ask them. And when I do question my clients, I get some really interesting things that I've never considered before. Like, for example, trust. We can take for granted that we need to cultivate trust, right? I'm not going to give you any money if I don't trust you. It's easy to say, trust me, but that doesn't mean that I do. I need to trust that you're going to do what you promise you're going to do. But the other flip part of that, which not a lot of people talk about, is self-trust. The client needs to trust themselves. And as a business coach and a business trainer, if they don't trust themselves, they might think you're awesome and they'd love to invest in you, but they don't trust they're going to follow through and get results. Does that make sense? So how exactly do your prospective ideal clients need to trust themselves in order to make the decision to buy from you? It's really, really useful to think of the last time you're intimidated. Actually, let's bonus question. Let's write that down. I want you to write the last time I was completely intimidated. The last time I was completely intimidated. Because this is how your prospective clients are feeling. When it comes to the, oh my God, do I enter my credit card details? Oh my God, do I actually take the next step? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. They're feeling completely intimidated a lot of the time. So knowing that and empathizing with that, remembering that, reminding yourself constantly, frequently about that state of mind is super useful for exercising your empathy muscles. There are two key skills in marketing: empathy, creativity. My favourite topic, the status quo. Down with the status quo. What do people desperately need to know more about that relates to what you do, but it isn't widely discussed? Yeah? And they're not necessarily waking up in the morning going, carrot bar. I want to eat a carrot bar. Or, taxation. I need to restructure my business so that I can get more, I can exit the business. So they're thinking about things that are different from that, right? And it's easier to join a party than to start your own party. Hey, everybody, you should be interested in carrot bars. It's much easier to figure out what they're interested in and then talk to that and then lead them towards the carrot bars. A weird example. Do you agree or disagree with what's topical or popular in your niche, sector, or industry? Businesses are in a unique position right now. Businesses are frequently more powerful than governments right now. We see this demonstrated all the time. And even though you might be a tiny, tiny business and think you're not important, you have a much greater influence and the potential for influence than you necessarily appreciate. And my favourite thing as a marketer, my favourite thing as a writer, is when somebody emails me back and says, thank God you wrote about this because I thought I was the only person. It feels so good to see something validated, right, by somebody else, where you felt like the only weirdo. What do you find yourself repeatedly ranting to friends or colleagues about that relates to what you do? When you're at a dinner party or a barbecue and your partner is kicking you under the table or doing that, oh, here we go again. Yeah, this is a massive shortcut into your point of difference, into your brand point of difference. So take notice of that. And again, through the lens of, why should I care? Why should my ideal clients care about this? Finally, your vision for the future. If we want to be seen as an expert, right, I help people to build their expert status, to build their professional reputations. But we've got to actually have something, we've got to have a stake in the ground. We've got to have a vision for the future. We can't just criticise the status quo and say, this sucks and that sucks, and why are we the invisible sector? Why do we get absolutely no publicity as a tiny business, even though we are the majority of Australian businesses? So this is also what I use when I teach social enterprise. I teach people how to create social enterprises and how to turn for-profit businesses into for-purpose businesses. And this is, the methodology. What is the change you'd like to see in the world? I do this, so this results. It helps to create the change I want to see in the world. You can also come at it backwards, because that can be super useful to define yourself against something. That can be a massive shortcut as well. If you don't know who you are, it's like, well, I'm not that, and I'm not that, definitely not that. This is the change I want to see, so this is what we need to do together to achieve this change. And you're trying to rally people, right? This should be a clarion call, calling people in and repelling those bad fit people. In other words, what is the bigger, broader, long-term reason behind why you do what you do? You've got to be creative here. You've got to dig a little. Don't be lazy. Don't just grab the most convenient, easy, phrase or wording. I find it hilarious when I'm in a hospital, a health clinic. I'm in the waiting room, and they have the little plaque on the wall, and it's like, our vision, blah, 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 our vision. And it says to provide the best quality patient outcomes. And I'm like, that's the least I expect. That's the least I expect. You're just stating the bleeding obvious. You're going blah, 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 blah. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to weave stories. We're going to take all of that, all of those creative prompts, and we're trying to weave stories that inspire, that inform, that enable, that empower, that provoke people. We need to provoke people, because what we don't want is this. We do not want to become the elevator music of the internet. And this malaise and this indifference that we all have when we're bombarded with information all the time, this is the enemy, right? This is going to stop people from taking action. They lie on the couch, they flick through Netflix, nothing changes. So the slow way of doing this is to go alone. And I'm pretty good at going alone, I have to say. After 14 years, I'm fucking awesome at making decisions without consulting anyone else. The smarter way is purposeful partnerships. This is where we grow not by ones and twos, but by dozens or hundreds or even thousands of people at a time. And here, rather than ask, the questions I get asked all the time is, should I start on LinkedIn, or should I be on Instagram, or should I have a podcast, or should I do video? The better questions are, what the hell are you going to talk about? Not today, not next week, but for years and years and years to come, in a way that reaches through computer screens and plucks the heartstrings of strangers, and most importantly, keeps you creatively inspired and excited by your own marketing. If you find your marketing bland, sure as hell everybody else does. So look at it through the lens of your communication strengths. You've got your storylines, you've got some ideas, you've got some, provocative things to say. So now, how do you do this? You could teach a group. You could be talking one-to-one. You could be speaking on a stage. You could be talking on live video. You've got lots of options, right? We don't all have to be great at everything. But certainly, definitely, if you hate yourself on video and you've done 3, join the club. You've got to hate yourself on video for a while before you get better at it. Yeah? I have been receiving people's profile pics, for 16 years now. Nobody ever sends me a profile picture of themselves without undermining themselves and apologising for the dreadful photo. Nobody likes themselves on video, but we do it because it's a community service. Because what we have to say is more important than if we have lipstick on our teeth. And yes, I have posted videos where I do have lipstick on my teeth. And I'm like, I can't be bothered. I said it just so happens I got lipstick on my teeth. Never mind. We can also do writing. So, you know, it's a great time to be alive insofar as public relations is concerned, because PR people used to be the gatekeepers to media. You had mainstream media, you had PR, and then you had the business world. And now you can pitch yourself directly to Mamma Mia if you wished. You could, you know, talk to journalists. You can watch the journalist on television. He's got his Twitter handle on the screen. It's not like they're difficult to find, these people, right? They're everywhere. So you can absolutely, definitely pitch yourself as a writer, should you wish. So I want to end with a couple of quotes. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Your ego is a massive liability as a business owner. Massive liability. Nobody's died of embarrassment. I promise, because I've been very embarrassed. Every time I speak on stage, I want to die for the first 10 minutes, but I never do. So getting over our ego, and there's ego involved in, oh my God, I've already repeated myself. I'm going to look pushy, I'm going to look desperate. If I'm marketing myself, I'm going to seem desperate. People come to me, business owners say, I've never had to do marketing, never spent $1 in advertising. All of my people come through word of mouth, and they're really proud of themselves, and I think, wow, poor you. Because you have no control over word of mouth. It's great. Unless, of course, you know, you're in the energy vampire people and they're all lining up at the gate and you're like, oh, I don't want to go to work today. And then finally, a bigger imagination takes bigger chances. High and low culture. So please say hi on social media. It's supposed to be social. You can find me at Brook McCarthy on social media. I don't have Hustle and Hard on social media because I'm on social media far too much as it is. I do not need double channels for everything. And if you'd like to know more, you can download my minimum viable marketing plan at hustleandheart.com.au/free.